Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. And on this episode, we're going to go ahead and continue where we left off. Now, I am not in the same group. We are in Unrest still, and I am still playing my Cleric. And I'll show you guys what level I am. If I have it up right here. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. I'm level 19 with about 1/3, maybe 1/4 of our bubble into our 4th one. So it won't be too long before we get to level 20, which I'm greatly looking forward to. When we get to 21, though, I think we're going to try to at least head upstairs. Now, remember, you may want to stay down here a little bit longer because these guys do pull from upstairs, so you're still getting some of those mobs, as well as the fact that if you're the highest person in a group, you get more experience from the kills than, say, somebody who's the lowest person in the group. So if you want to go to the next grouping area, that's perfectly fine. It's actually a good idea to do that. But you got to remember, it's almost like going from junior high to high school. Now you're the small fish, and you're earning less experience. So even though you might be killing higher level creatures, and in essence should be making more experience, there may become a time where you're not, because the higher level one or the higher levels, if there's more than one in your group, will be sucking a lot of that experience away. Plus, you got to keep in mind that certain classes like paladins have a experience penalty, and so when they're part of your group, that becomes part of your experience penalty. So if you find a group where, for whatever reason, the group makeup or the creatures you're killing because you're the highest level or whatnot, you're just making massive amounts of experience, you may want to actually stay in that group rather than moving on to something a little harder, because you may not make that experience there. But then again, that's only if the experience is your main concern. If you actually want loot, then by all means, keep going through the zone. The deeper you go, usually will imply that you're going to get better and better loot. Most zones actually work that way. Lower Guck is definitely one of those examples. As you go through it, there's some really good loot at the beginning of the zone, in like the assassin and the supplier room, but if you go further and further down, you can get the FPSS or the Yeski's blade. You get some really good loot in there, and they're a little bit more difficult. In fact, they're actually a lot more difficult depending on your level and the classes you have with you, and of course their skill level at playing their class. I'm not very good at playing my Necro, and I'll be the first one to admit that. So if I took him there, I would still be able to DPS, but not anywhere close to what, say, somebody who soloed or played a Necro their first time around would be able to do. I'm actually really good as a Cleric, I believe. I've never really had any complaints, and I've had plenty of compliments, and I've been in raiding guilds, and they thought I was good, so I'm going by their, opinions. But with this class, I'm fairly decent at it, I think, and because of that, I'm actually able to fight in places that maybe I probably shouldn't be just yet. I'm kind of pushing the limit on that. I haven't really done that through our playthrough just yet. I've kind of been taking it easy and just showing zones and going through just kind of like what you might, do if you started and picked up the game and be like, okay, where do I go now? How long do I stay here? There's times, though, that you may get tired of a certain zone, or you may, for whatever reason, just be like, today I feel like exploring. I want to go someplace different. I still want to earn experience, but I want to go someplace different. And so there are zones that you can go to, but they're usually a little harder to get to, or they just take longer to get to, and there may not be as many groups there. And so you could try those out if you ever get in that kind of, situation where you're just like, I want to explore, because this is a game you should explore. There's always that threat that, well, if I die, the corpse run is going to be so massive, because I'm going out way far, in some weird direction. But as a Cleric, it's kind of cool because you get the ability to bind yourself anywhere. There's almost no place in the game that you can't bind yourself, which is pretty cool, because if you're going off exploring, you can quite literally bind yourself at every zone entrance that you find a little safe spot, and that way if you do die, you're literally in the same zone. You can just go get your corpse. There is a downside to that, though, by the way, guys. You need to keep this in mind. You don't really have a way to get back to town other than your gate, which is going to gate you back to where you're binded. So unless there's a druid in the zone, or you feel like running back the whole way as well, you may not want to bind yourself at every entrance. That way, if you do get to wherever you're going, you're exploring, you're having a good time, you get there, you kill a whole bunch of creatures, and then you're like, okay, I'm kind of done with this area. I need to go back. I need to sell. I need to buy more food. Whatever the case is, you can just hit the gate button, and now you're back. If it took you an hour and a half to get there, you hit the gate button, and you're back in town. You're set. If you had binded yourself, now you have to travel an hour and a half back the way you came, through all those mobs that were very difficult to get there, or sit around in the zone, or try to convince a druid or wizard to come to that zone, which obviously is out of the way and kind of hard to get to. And then, of course, you have to pay them to teleport you for the most part. Some of them will do it for free, but usually if it requires you traveling a great distance, the chances are they're going to expect to get paid a little bit, at least, unless they're a guildie. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that that gate and bind is a very, very useful thing to have, but again, it does have its drawbacks. Plus, keep in mind as well that when you're in a group like this zone's not too bad because the zone entrance is pretty close to where we're at. I mean, you've seen it already. We can run to the zone entrance. It's not that bad. But in other zones like Lower Guck, sometimes you have to either invis down, which can be kind of difficult in that zone because it has both living creatures and undead creatures. So unless you're like a Shadow Knight who has that ability to do a little bit of both, you're gonna actually have to fight a few creatures at some point to get down there, or have somebody in your group that can invis you. The problem comes in when the group's done with. There's several times where if you play late at night, or even during the day, sometimes one person will just say, you know, hey guys, I gotta leave, I gotta go to work, I gotta, you know, feed the dog, I gotta do something, right? And so he's getting off. Somebody else says, well, you know, we've all been here for about, 6-7 hours. It's a good time to take a break. I'm gonna go make me something to eat or do something. So another person leaves, and somebody else is like, since you guys are leaving, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. And all of a sudden, the entire group is leaving at the exact same time. The problem with that is not all the classes get gate. The tanks like a Shadow Knight and Paladins do not get gate. And so if the healers and the enchanters and everybody else who are casters who have that spell gate out, basically you just killed your tank who's been very faithful and gave you all that experience and been pulling really good, because he has to run out now, and he may not make it. Chances are he probably won't, unless he's a Shadow Knight and he can fatigue death. But if he's a Paladin, they're not going to make that run for the most part unless they have really good armor, because especially in Lower Guck, you have to actually swim a portion of the way, and swimming slows you down. Even if you have a really high skill in it, it's still slower than running, and so you're going to get attacked there, and you're going to be getting hit the whole way there. And so my suggestion would be, as the healer, especially as the healer, to stay. Just stay behind when a group leaves, and make sure you're there for the tank. He can invis you up, he can invis himself up if he has those abilities, and you can both make your way out. If he doesn't have invis, well then fight your way out with him. It may be kind of slow, and it may take you an extra 10 minutes before you get to log off, but he will remember that. I guarantee you the tank will remember the fact that out of all the people in your group, you're probably the only one who stayed. Most people don't even consider it. I've been in groups where everybody just gates out, and I was a Shadow Knight. I'm like, oh, well, thank you guys. Now I'm dead, right? Now I either have to camp right now before the room spawns and hope that I can log on and find out when the room is cleared again so I can log back in and get my guy out, or I take my chances with a run that I know chances are I'm not going to make. And if I die, then I have that whole long thing of going back and getting my corpse, which is going to be a nightmare too, because now I have to actually go through the zone to get my body, which, since I couldn't even run out of the zone, is going to be even harder. And usually you'll have to sit at the zone entrance hoping that another group comes in and clears the path and you can get in, or you can convince somebody in the zone that's a rogue to go in there and get your body and pull it to you. So yeah, it behooves you to actually help out other players, to keep in mind that they have limitations, and so do you. And if you know what their limitations are, you can help them out, and they will definitely remember and thank you for that. I've made plenty of friends with my Cleric that were tanks because I didn't leave them, because I knew exactly what they were going to go through when the group left, and I would actually remind the group, so I wouldn't be the only one, because some zones, you can't leave with just a Cleric and a tank. You need the mezzing, you need the DPS, you need that stuff to get out, because they spawn so quickly. Or they spawn quick enough that, your slow killing as just a tank and a healer isn't sufficient. You know, I shouldn't say they spawn quickly, because there's not very many zones in this game that will spawn that fast. I mean, they all have a spawn table, and they all have a timer on each one of the creatures. But for the most part, if you have three people would probably be all you would really need to work your way out of a zone, as long as you didn't have to break through any rooms, which could pose an issue if you're in like Solus, or not Solus B, but Seb. Seb has quite a few rooms that you kind of have to go through to get to some of the harder ones. And if you're trying to break a room, yeah, you're probably going to need a full group. So again, it's kind of nice, especially if you're a druid. You know, if you're a druid, be the one who stays behind always. You know, just make sure everybody has gated out, or everybody's, you know, set. Maybe he's leaving, maybe the tank is leaving and going to join another group right down the hall. I've done that before. It doesn't happen too often, but you know, if you know there's a group over there and you know they don't have a full one, and you know yours about to break up, you can send them a message and be like, hey, do you guys need an extra, you know, Shadow Knight or something? I'm already here. A lot of the time, if they are really far down into a dungeon, just the fact that you can get to them means you can join the group. Like, they don't really care anymore. Like, they're down to like 4 players, and the only way to bring anybody in is either if they can sneak down, or if somehow somebody clears the path and they can fight their way down. So they're very limited on the players they can get to replenish the ones that have left. At some point, though, if they lose the right classes, they will have to actually gate out and pick up a few more people and then fight their way back down again. And usually people don't like to do that, because it takes time away from camping that name. And maybe somebody will take that name while you're gone. Maybe they will see that room is empty and they'll be like, oh, okay, this group left, we'll go ahead and pull it. Especially if there's already a group nearby. You know, if there's somebody already nearby and they're killing a room that has a name in it, and they see that you guys gate out for whatever reason, they're not paying attention. They didn't ask you guys, oh, you're gating out, you're coming right back. They're not asking that. They've seen that you gated out, and that's all they know. And then the name spawns, they're going to go in there and kill it. I mean, why wouldn't they? They'll leave their room, go into that room, break it, kill the name, med back up, and go back to their room, and then continue to pull the way they were doing. And then if it spawns again, they'll do that again. So you may have been sitting there for 8 hours, getting nothing but placeholders. It happens. It sucks. I guarantee you it's going to happen to you eventually. You're going to have an off day where you just nothing but placeholders. And then something happens. You guys all die, or you gate out, getting more people. You're on your way back down. And then you hear, oh, he spawned. Not only did he spawn, somebody killed him. Not only did they kill him, but he dropped the rare loot. And then, yeah, then you get back down there, and it's another 2 hours of placeholders. So it definitely does suck. But yeah, there's just a lot of different things. You got to remember that it's not just the game you're playing with, but it's also other players. And they shape and form zones depending on their playstyle. If you got good people in a zone, it can be beautiful. I mean, back in the heyday of Solus B and Lower Guck, they were so camped. I'm not even kidding you. They were so camped that not one creature would be up the entire time. Like, as soon as he spawned, there was already somebody sitting there, because they knew the timer. They were just sitting there waiting for the creature to spawn. As soon as he did, they pulled him, boom, right back to the group, killed him within like 10-15 seconds, because they were so full up on power from waiting for another pull. And you actually had people not just camping rooms, but they were like camping hallways just for the experience, because you do get a bonus multiplier in that zone. And my very first experience with a Lower Guck was walking into the zone, quite literally just walking in and peeking around a corner and be like, oh, there's no mobs up, I'll keep going a little further. Oh, there's nothing up, I'll keep going a little further. I got through the entire zone. Didn't see one mob the entire time. And then on my way out, I ran into like every mob. I was just getting very unlucky. I kept running into mobs. They would pull them off of me, obviously, because they didn't want me to steal their kill, and I had no intention of doing so. In fact, I probably would have died if they hadn't, so I was very thankful that they would. But yeah, it can be kind of tricky going into a zone that is that camped, because it gives you a false sense of security. You know, it's just like there's nothing up, so I can look around, right? And then when something spawns, you die in like 2 hits. Then you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? Maybe I should have had Invis on, or maybe I should have been sneaking, or maybe I shouldn't have just gone in at all. You know, I should have been paying attention to what was going on. But yeah, that zone was really cool, and it was, at the time, it was one of those things that you could sit at the entrance, and there would be like 10 or 15 people there waiting for a group. And when somebody called out, you're like, oh, it's your turn to come down, right? Your number on the list has come up, and we got a spot for you. You could just run down to the group and join it. Now, there's still a lot of people in that zone, but it's not anywhere near as camped as it used to be, because now it's not the cap. That used to be like the highest level dungeon you could go into at the cap of 50. Now I think it goes up to 60 with, you know, Ruins of Canark, and then they're going to come out with Velicious, or Vilius, however you want to pronounce that. And I don't think it's going to upgrade the cap, but it's going to give you new zones to go to. So a lot of those older ones that I've been talking about will be a little bit less camped. I think they'll still be camped because they're still like the best experience to get at level, you know, 40 to 50, you know, up to that point. Maybe a little higher than 50 actually, because I remember going back to Solus B after the expansion came out and getting 1 or 2 more levels before I went over to, I think it was like Hornor's Castle, where I think I spent most of my time after that. But yeah, it's different when there's a lot of people on. You go to some of these zones like Kedge Keep that I mentioned before, they get completely ignored. There's sometimes where guilds will go over there to help out, you know, somebody finish one of their epics. I think it's the Druid epic that has one of the name mobs there you have to kill. And they would go over there to help them out, right? It's a kind of a low-level zone, and they'd be kind of a high-level one. So they'd be like, does anybody have a low-level character they want to level up? We'll make an experience group to go over there and kill those creatures for a little while. We'll kill the named every time he spawns to see if he drops whatever the item is. We'll have that character or that person's druid camp there, and if it drops, he can load up on it and loot the item. But at least this way, everybody's making experience. It's not like completely worthless. You're not just sitting there doing nothing basically and not earning anything to help somebody out, which is perfectly fine if you want to do that. But if you can do both, that's ideal, because people would tend to stay a little bit longer and have a better time doing it, because they feel like not only are they helping somebody, which is a great, you know, feeling, but you also have that, oh, I'm leveling up this guy too, which I haven't done in a while because he's like a side character. And when guilds used to do that, you'd walk in there and there'd be like 60 people in the Kedge Heap, and you'd be like, holy crap, the zone's camped, right? This is great. You're able to like swim around. You could see like where people would actually camp rooms. I don't remember how many times I went into that zone. Not one single person. Not one person in that zone other than myself. And I still think to this day, I'm not very familiar with where groups would sit. In zones like this, I am. I've sat here long enough. I've been in groups in some zones that I can, you know, literally tell you, okay, this is a zone, or this is a group, this is a group, this is a group spot. You guys can sit here and you can pull from all these rooms right here, and this is how you do it. You know, those are very familiar to me. Unfortunately, there's zones out there that are not, and I think for the most part, most people are probably unfamiliar with how to pull those zones, because once you get past those zones in level, there's no way in this game to mentor down or lower your level and get that experience back, that experience of, oh, these guys are tough. You know, I gotta watch how I pull. I gotta make sure that I only pull one at a time, or I only pull 2 at a time, and we mez one or root the other one or something like that. I gotta be very careful with that, because after a certain point, you become such a high level that you can take 2 at a time, or 3 at a time, or even 4 at a time. And when you can do that, it changes the way you play that zone, and what mobs you can kill, and what names you can go after. You know, you may be in a zone that has like 3 names up. You may see it on track, and you see 3 names are up, but nobody in your group can kill those because they're just too hard for you guys. That's kind of a sucky feeling to see that, but it happens, and it's part of the zone. It's part of feeling that accomplishment when you actually do kill them, that, oh, those guys we've been wanting to kill for a long time, that stupid name guy, and we haven't been able to do it. He was always AEing us, and, you know, which is area effect, or dotting the crap out of us, and we could never cure it because we just didn't have the skill to do it, or something along those lines. And so when you finally kill them, you're like, yeah, this is exactly what we've been hoping for. You know, we wanted to see what he dropped, and, you know, how hard he was. It just made everything worthwhile. But if you go through a zone at a high level, you don't get any of that sense of accomplishment. You see the names up, you kill them in a couple hits, you loot the item that you get off of them, which really doesn't mean a lot to you because it's not something you can use. It's kind of a low level thing because you're such a high level, and, you know, you just lose that sense of awe. You know, that sense of enjoyment. You know, you're still getting a little bit. It's still fun to go to low-level zones and just kind of wreck it, you know, just go through it and kill everything, especially as some classes, like bards, for example. They have a area effect spells, or actually several songs that they can use. Hold on a second, guys. Need to heal my enchanter before she dies. No, stop getting hit. Come on, there she goes. Okay, they got it. But yeah, bards can really wreck a whole... Oh, no, she's getting hurt again. Come on, taunt it off of her. I can't heal her fast enough. Come on, get it off, guys. Get it off, get it off. No, I want to root it, but I don't have time. I gotta... Okay, somebody else rooted it. Nope, it broke. No, she's gonna die. Don't die. No. Okay, I got aggro on one, which is perfectly fine. That means she's not getting hit. Oh, no, it interrupted. Dang it. Okay, somebody used lay of hands on her. Thank you. Oh, man, I thought she was gonna die there for a second. I'm gonna keep healing, as if I don't get interrupted. Now, I was gonna say, I'm gonna back up against the wall so he can't interrupt me anymore, but I'm rooted, so I can't even move. I should have been back up against the wall in the first place, but it was kind of interfering with some of my spells because the table was getting in the way. So let's see. I'm gonna heal him. He's actually fine. He's the tank. He can take hits quite decently, and I'm doing just fine as well. I'm a little low on power though, because I went through so much of it trying to keep up with her life. And I'm so glad he used that lay of hands, because I don't think she would have made it. Wow, that was rough. Let's see, what did they say? Ow. Yeah. Well, good job. Yeah, that was a lifesaver right there. Yeah, so if you have a paladin, lay of hands, guys, I know you don't like to use it because it takes so long to come back. It is one of those spells like Harm Touch for Shadow Knights that you tend to save. You tend to be very cautious when using it, and for the most part, instead of using it, I think it's like every 90 minutes you can use it, you go entire days without using it just because you want to hold on to it when it's absolutely necessary, because you've done it before where you just use it kind of willy-nilly and you're just like, oh, okay, it kind of could be used here, or yeah, I'll use it here, and then when you really need it, you don't have it because you just used it like 10 minutes ago. It always works out to be that case. It never works out that, oh, you used it, 2 or 3 times, and then finally you need to use it, and oh, it's back up again. It's been 90 minutes since you used it last. That's cool. That works out perfect. No, it doesn't work that way. The timing is never right for you to use that, except for in extreme situations. And so they will hang on to that, and they get very protective of it. They feel really bad when they lose it, because I know as paladins, they talk about it at least, where they feel kind of naked without it. They feel like they're not quite the paladin they should be. Like the group expects them to have that up when they join. I feel that's kind of an unfair, expectation of them to have that. You don't know what they just came from. They could have just came from a raid where they had to use it, or they could have just been soloing where they had to use it on themselves, or they could have been running by and they saw somebody about to die and they used it on them just out of kindness. So I never expect a Shadow Knight to have Harm Touch. I never expect a Paladin to have Lay of Hands up. It's a bonus if they do, but I never expect it. But I know they feel bad if they join a group and they don't have it up, which it's kind of unfortunate that some of them do feel bad about that. But you can see just how much of help that can be in the right situation. It saved her life. I mean, is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal to her, I'm sure, because she didn't probably want to die and lose that experience. Plus, if she dies, well, she's the enchanter, which means there's going to be a little lull in combat. I mean, we're going to have to wait for her to get back, med back up, get her body, things of that sort. If she's going to get rezzed, we have to wait for res effect to come off. So you save yourself, 5, 10, 15 minutes of downtime, or at least slower pulls, if people don't die. So yeah, it does help out if you can save people's lives. I wish I could have done it myself. I wish I was able to heal faster, but she was just getting hit way too hard, and I just don't have the spells yet. I don't have complete heal, although I don't think she would have lasted long enough for complete heal, because it takes 10 seconds to cast, and I think it would probably have been overkill in her situation. Complete heal almost never gets used on a caster. For one, like I said, they just don't last long enough. When they start getting hit, 10 seconds is an eternity. I mean, it's 2 seconds and they're dead. So you're probably going to use a supreme heal or something like that, or superior heal on them. It's okay. It uses a lot more power and doesn't give you near as much healing, But it does heal a little bit faster. I think it's like a 4 or 5, maybe it might even be 6 seconds. I don't remember exactly how long the casting time was on that one. It wasn't good. There's faster ones that you could use, but usually the faster ones don't heal nearly as much. And not a big deal for casters. Again, they have very, very little hit points. So if you need to heal a caster in a pinch, you could use those. Again, you're going to be going through your power a little quicker, so that could play a role if you're very low on power. Unfortunately, sometimes as the healer, you have to make very tough decisions. Decisions that most people, if they knew you were making that decision, would probably be upset. If the enchanter knew that you sacrificed her to save the group, some people might be okay with that. Other people might be, you know, you suck as a healer. You don't really, I mean, you have to make those decisions. If you've gotten like 15 guys on, you've been fighting for the last, 20 minutes, and you've been mezzing, everybody's been doing their job, but now power is very, very scarce, and the tank is almost dead, the enchanter's almost dead, the wizard is damaged, the necro's damaged, everybody in your group is damaged, and you have just enough for one complete heal. Who do you use it on? They're all about to die. They're all getting hit with area effects. They're all about to die, but who do you heal? Okay, I think let's reform. He's AFK, so we can get another if we need be. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. When people go AFK, a lot of the time people will get upset about that. Not really one to get upset. If we need the spot open for somebody who's actually wanting to join the group, then I would say, okay, you can boot them out if that's the case. But we had an extra spot open already, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But again, back to what I was talking about before, where if they're all about to die, you know they're all about to die, and you have one heal that you can use, who do you heal? Well, it depends. Do you want to be able to finish the fight? If it's that close, are you going to be able to finish the fight? If that's the case, it's kind of obvious who you have to heal. You have to heal the tank. It's unfortunate, but without him, without whoever your tank is, you're not going to win. You have to have somebody who can sit there and take the hits. You also need somebody who can dish out the hits, but the tanks in a pinch can do a little bit of damage. I mean, I'm kind of implying that they're not great, because they're not, but I have seen it where tanks can finish a fight off just fine. It's slower, and yeah, they're taking the damage and eating up your power, but they will get you through it. So you do need that tank alive. Now, if the situation is that of, there's no way we're going to finish this off, we're too low on power, there's too many mobs left, who do I heal? Well, if you only have one choice, and you're in a bind, and the druid is casting evac, or the druid is casting teleport, or the enchanter is able to keep everything mezzed and she's getting hit, then I would heal either the druid if he's casting evac or teleport, or I would heal the enchanter so that she can keep everything mezzed so that everybody can gate out, or the Shadow Knight can fatigue death, or unfortunately if you have a paladin, he can sacrifice himself and die for the greater group, or greater good of the group, which as a puller or as a tank in general, you need to become very accustomed to being the sacrificial lamb. It's just, it's going to be one of those things. You're going to die a lot as a puller. And if you're one of those people, and I mentioned this before in other episodes, if you're one of those people that, don't like dying, you take it personally, you hate the experience loss and all that other stuff, for the love of everything, do not play a puller. Because you're going to be upset, and you're going to be angry, and the groups aren't going to be happy with it. It's... For me, as a Shadow Knight, when I played, I was more than happy to take the hit. I thought every time I died for the greater good of the group, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I felt good when I did that. I didn't feel good that I had to die, because I would prefer to be good enough in a group, especially with the group there, to not need to die. But if the need ever arose, I was more than happy to bite the bullet. I was, as a puller, there's plenty of times where you go off into a room, and you'll either pacify the room, or for Shadow Knight, you'll try to chain pull it, or just pull it yourself and fatigue death, so that you can get 1 or 2 or whatever amount that you're trying to get out of that room. Sometimes the pulls will go bad, and I knew, okay, I got 3 guys on me, my fatigue death failed, I'm about to die if I don't run back to the group and get healed up. Can we take 3 guys on? Maybe. It'd be really close, and probably somebody would die. Probably not me, but somebody would die. Probably the wizard, who would get aggro somehow, and I wouldn't be able to pull it off of him in time. You know, the chances are the healer's going to keep me alive because I'm the tank, and that's what they do. So I could sacrifice somebody else to save my own life. I wouldn't do that. I would just take the hit. I'd be like, guys, don't heal me. I'm going to die outside the room. You guys can res me afterwards, and we'll come back and we'll pick up again. You know, it's one of those things that you kind of have to just accept. That if you pulled badly, if you didn't have the skill, and it kind of promoted you to get the skill, you know, get the experience, because you hated, you know, just dying willy-nilly for no reason just because you sucked at pulling, you know, and you're going to suck at pulling. You just, it's a given, you're going to suck when you first start. And every time you go to a new zone, you kind of have to learn it all over again. You know the basics of pulling, you know all the fundamentals, but you don't know how the mobs react in that zone. And because of that, you're going to have these mistakes that just happen, and usually the groups will be very understanding. You know, if you tell them, hey, this is my first time in this zone, I'm still learning the paving, and I'm still learning the rooms. Every room is a little different. You go into a room, and there's 3 guys in there. You try pulling one of them, and you get all 3 of them, even though they're really far away from each other. Whereas if you had just pulled, say, a different one of those 3, you may have just been able to pull him single. It's weird how certain mobs in certain places, even ones that are really far away, for whatever reason are kind of linked to the other ones. Like, there's really no way to break that room by pulling that one mob that you just pulled by, you know, sheer accident, or they kind of actually, I think, did it on purpose. There's some rooms where you'd enter and you go through a door, and the very first mob you see is the only one you can see. There's 2 others in the room, but you can only see that one when you first open the door. But if you kind of move a little bit to the right, move a little bit into the room, not much because you don't want to get aggro, but you move a little bit into the room, you can see around the corner, and there may be another mob there. And that might be the mob you should pull first. It sounds completely crazy that you would pull a mob further away from the original mob and not get aggro from the first one. But it happens. And it's just one of those things that, unless you have the experience or the information, whether it's from a guild or from people in your group that are telling you, okay, this is what you need to go do when you go in there. And occasionally you'll get that. Occasionally you'll find somebody who is incredibly knowledgeable on the zone as far as pooling or, you know, mezzing or whatever the case is. Because these people that you see, you're looking at them and you're like, oh, okay, so they're level 20, level 25, whatever, they're around the same level range that I am. Yeah, on these characters they are. But who knows? These guys could have, you know, 6 max level characters. They may be in some of the top tier rating guilds, and they're very knowledgeable on you know, just a huge range of things. You don't know. You don't know who these people are. You know, even if they're in your guild, like I have a couple people here from my guild, and you know, I don't know them that well. You know, I've seen them around, I've heard them talk, and they seem, you know, okay people and stuff, but I don't know if they have another character in another guild and they do ratings every night, and this is what they do to kind of relax and do something in the downtime. Because a lot of guilds that do rating, that's all they do. Like the big ones, that's all they do. They do rating. They don't do groups. They don't do dungeons. They just do rating. If they're gonna go do a dungeon, they do it as a rating dungeon. Basically, they go in there with their entire alliance, like I was talking with Kedge Keep, and they just tear open the zone. They just kill everything in seconds, you know, and they just go through it like it's easy. And usually the only reason they're doing that is, 1, maybe they're bored, or 2, maybe they decided that, hey, today or this week is the week of alts. Holy crap, we got somebody in here. He's almost dead. Let me heal him up real quick. You gotta love it when somebody joins your group and they're almost dead. Yeah, it definitely gives you a little jolt as a cleric, and you're like, oh, I'm not doing my job. But yeah, he didn't die on my watch. He wasn't part of my group, and he was taking the hit somewhere out there. Now, we do have a shaman, and you see occasionally he'll cast a heal. His heals are not as efficient as mine. His heals aren't as powerful as mine, and they're never going to be. That's not what the shaman really was ever intended to be. He's not just a healer. Like my class, he can do a few buffs, and occasionally he can do a little bit of damage here and there against undead. But probably about 95% of all the spells he gets are geared towards healing of one way or another. That's what his thing is. It's just healing. Whereas shamans, they have multiple things they're good at. They got tons and tons of buffs, really, really good buffs. They can, they get a pet. They can slow creatures. They can, you know, do all this stuff. Healing as well. It's kind of a minor part to their character, and they usually don't get called on to do that unless they can't find another healer to do it. I mean, people would love to have a shaman and a druid, or a shaman and a cleric. Usually not all three. I mean, you could, but that'd be a little, I don't know, it just wouldn't be very balanced, because shamans don't do crazy amounts of damage, neither do druids. So if you had gotten a necro or a rogue in that place, you know, or even two rogues, you know, then you would be killing crazy amount and getting a lot of experience, especially if you're in a zone that's not as camped. You kind of want to go towards more the DPS than anything else, because the more DPS you have, the faster you kill. And since there's tons and tons of mobs up because nobody's in the zone, you have tons of things. You just have constant pooling. You have constant experience just flowing in, almost like a river. If you go in there to your experience bar and you look at it, it will just be, you know, ticking up. It doesn't stop. It just be tick, 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 tick. Oh, I got a level. Tick, 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 tick. I got another level, you know, and it's like that, and that's what you want. But of course, you can't always have what you want. Sometimes there's just not the group, or not the right people there to make up that perfect group. And in those situations, you may find a cleric, a druid, and a shaman in your group, and you're still going to be able to do rather well. I just don't think you're going to have the DPS that you could have had if you had maybe replaced one of those with a necro or a wizard or a rogue and got a little bit more DPS than you normally would have had. Because DPS, I think, is one of the most amazing things you can get in a group. It makes a huge difference. It doesn't sound like it would be. All you're basically saying is you do more damage per second. That's DPS, damage per second, than most of the other classes out there. Well, they still have to be able to take the hits. You still have to be able to heal. You think of all these things in the back of your head, and yes, they're all true. But I've seen people like monks who do incredible DPS, or rogues that do even more DPS. They can walk up to a creature in stealth. You know, they're sneaking and they're hiding. They can walk up to a creature and backstab it, and they can do like 40% of the creature's hit or life in one hit, and that's like an even con to them. So you can just imagine what they would do in a group where they're not taking aggro after that first hit. They would be able to go back into sneak and hide and do another backstab. That's 80% of the creature's life in 2 hits. You know, I mean, all you guys really have to do is 20%, and the creature's dead in like 4 seconds. It's incredibly, you know, efficient, and you almost don't need a measure if you have. Hold on a second, I don't know what she's doing. Oh, I guess she's looking around. You almost don't need a measure if you have the DPS, because you can kill quick enough that the ads really aren't a thing. They just come in, everybody gets on one creature. You always want to make sure you assist. For those of you who are not familiar with assist, you can make a hot key for it. It's just /assist. That's ASSISST. Then you can do space and then the person's name. You don't have to do the person's name. You can just do /assist, and whoever you're clicked on, you automatically assist that person. Now, if you do, you know, assist and then the person's name, you don't even have to click on them. You just will automatically assist that person. So that's usually more efficient and, you know, easier for everybody in general, because if you have to constantly click on somebody, you know, if there's a ton of people there or there's a ton of mobs, you may find it difficult to click on that person, especially if they're not in your group. If you're in a raid, you know, you can't just go up here to your group window and click on them or use the F keys to select them a little easier, a little faster. You can't do that. You will quite literally have to target that person somehow, whether it's /target space and then the person's name, or you're clicking on them with your mouse. That's why assist comes in handy, and it's one of those things you should get used to using pretty early on if you're going to be grouping. Now, that's again one of those things that I was talking about before, that if you do a lot of soloing, you're kind of unaware of some of these things like assist. You're just not very used to it. Depending on your class, when you use the assist button, you may actually want to wait a few more seconds to actually attack it. Like wizards, I know, will wait about 10% to 15% of the creature's life before they hit it, because their spells are so powerful that if they don't, they almost immediately get aggro. And if they do, one hit to a wizard from a creature, you know, that's like level 35 and they're level 35, getting hit by a level 35 creature will take off like 40% of their life. I mean, they have almost no hit points. It's kind of pathetic in the amount of hit points they have. But again, it's give and take. They do incredible damage, and the take is they can't take hits very well. Shadow Knights and Paladins and Warriors, they get tons of hit points. The take is they can't deal out the damage very well. The same thing for Clerics. We get a decent amount of hit points, and we can take damage decently as well, and then we can do extreme amounts of healing, but we pretty much suck at everything else. You know, you can do it, it's just you're not anywhere near as good as everybody else. There's no way I could ever imagine any healer on the server or any other server out-damaging a rogue. It's just not going to happen. Unless that rogue is sitting there picking his nose and not doing anything, then maybe, okay, you can out-damage him, because he wasn't even in the fight. But, you know, if he's actually legitimately trying to out-damage you, that's the end of the story. He's going to out-damage everybody, pretty much. The only one I know who could probably keep up with a rogue would be a wizard. But that's only once he gets his most powerful spells. And even then, he's going to run into an issue that the rogues kind of get around a little bit by using their sneak and their hide, which is aggro. They don't really get a lot of aggro if they're doing it right. Where the wizards, they don't really have that ability not to get the aggro if they're, you know, using that much damage. The same thing as Necros. Necros are going to do serious damage as well, but that's a whole nother subject, and we will play those different classes. You know, I've already made a Necro, and we've already made a Shaman and a Shadow Knight, which we haven't really done too much with. We're going to, though, eventually. We're going to do a lot with the Shadow Knight, and we're going to go over to Najina with him, I think, because that's kind of a low-level zone that most people don't go to, and I kind of want to show it off. It's a difficult zone. It's a difficult zone to go through, I grant it, because you have to have keys to get through each one of the floors, and the keys are kind of a pain in the butt to get to, and if I remember right, that zone was a nightmare on the paving. Creatures went in all sorts of weird, funky ways, and they always aggroed everything around them. You would think standing like 4 feet in front of a creature and shooting an arrow at it or hitting it with a spell would guarantee that it would come running in your direction. No, not in that zone. I remember you're sitting in a room or at the entrance to the room, and you just came down a long hallway. You cast a spell on a creature in that room, and he disappears through a wall. Like, he just goes through a wall. He runs into it, and he's running into it for a little while, and then poof, he's gone, right? And you're like, okay, that's not, no, I'm in a zone, right? Because anytime a creature disappears on you, be worried. Be very, very, very worried. Because there will be those instances where he may have just disappeared, and he never comes back to haunt you. But you're sitting there in the back of your mind saying, yeah, when's this train going to happen, right? What's he going to bring? How far is he running that 4 hours later he still hasn't found me? Because that's going to be nasty if he ever does. But, yeah, if they ever disappear on you, make sure you zone it, man. I know it sucks as a necro or somebody with a pet. It sucks to zone. And for anybody else who had to fight their way down to, you know, like the 3rd floor or something like that, and something like that happens, then you have to run through all those other floors just to get back, and yeah, it sucks to have to zone. I guarantee you, I know what that feels like, but almost always you will be better off for it if you do zone it, because those things are horrible. They come back to haunt you when you least expect it, and I've seen some really, really nasty pulls with disappearing mobs. Sometimes you get some really cool ones too. I've seen it, like I've talked about it over in Seb, where we pull the mob from one side of the zone that isn't even possible considering we were all the way on the other side of the zone, and some weird paving issue or some weird spell effect somehow got aggro, and for some even stranger reason it didn't pull any aggro from any of the creatures it passed. It literally just came with its room, which was actually a named room, and it came all the way to ours on the other side of the zone, and the people wouldn't even believe it at the time. You know, they're just like, that's not, you couldn't, there's no way you could have pulled that named all the way across the zone and lived. It just wouldn't have happened. There would be too many things along the path to kill you, and yet we did, and we didn't even do it on purpose. You know, it's just a glitch. It happens, and when it does, try not to be upset about it. As far as like, if a group pulls your name by mistake, by some weird glitch, if you actually, I mean, you're going to be upset when it happens because you're not going to know that it was a glitch. But when you get down to the heart of it and you actually start talking to them, or most of the time yelling at them for stealing your pool, and then you find out that it was just an honest mistake, accept it. You know, they're not lying to you most of the time. Sometimes they might be, and they're trying to cover it up, but most of the time they're not lying to you. It's just it's part of the game. It's not perfect, and I don't know. For me, it's kind of one of those charming things that it's not perfect. That occasionally things go wrong, because anytime, like in life, you know, if everything's going as planned, it can be kind of dull. You know what to expect. Okay, I do this. I do A, B, and C, and D, E, and F happens. It's all planned out, and you know exactly what's supposed to happen. But when you throw in a little bit of chaos, a little bit of chance, a little bit of unknown, that can be kind of cool in a video game, especially if it spices things up, and it usually does. It usually gets the zone talking, gets the zone interacting with each other, because at some point, if you're on long enough, people go into a zombie-like coma at some point. Around your 6th or 7th hour being on in the same room, you guys are just kind of going through the motions, and if there's no conversation going on to keep people, almost awake, then yeah, they will kind of go off in their own little world, and it takes something like that to break people out of that and be like, oh yeah, we're on a game, right? We're playing with other people, and it's not just, oh, we're just pulling constantly just to get another bubble. So I do enjoy that. But I think we're going to go ahead and end the video here because I don't want to do too long of a video. We did actually finish off getting our 4th bubble. So now we just need one more and we're going to be level 20. That's actually pretty good. And as I said before, guys, I do have a couple pieces of armor that I do not need. Let me see, where are they at? Okay, they're right there. So I have a small ringmail belt. Oh, great. Backpack. I have a small ringmail belt. I have a neck guard, a small ringmail neck guard, and I have an ivory bracelet. Now, if you're actually a class or a level that can use these things, not just sell them, but actually use them, go ahead and send me a tell or leave a comment below. More than happy to give them to you. They're just extra pieces that I get. I don't really like to sell too often. I like to give them away, if at all possible. Holy crap, hold on a second, guys. Let me heal her real quick, or him, I should say. So we're going to go ahead and end the episode here, guys. Again, if you do like these videos, please take a moment, hit the like button. I don't know why I'm getting so much lag all of a sudden. Really a lot of lag, actually. But yeah, go ahead and hit those like buttons and subscribe if you like this channel. Again, you're always welcome to leave comments below. Oh no, I'm about to die.